Look, everyone wants godlike aim, but you won't get there from practicing your flicking skills alone. If you don't do the things that I'm about to show you, you're only going to be putting yourself at a disadvantage. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another ProGuides video. I'm Kangas, and today I'm showing you some of the ways that you can win more of your aim duels. So hit that sub button and let's get into it.
The first one is something not many people think about, but you should be utilizing different shooting styles based on how far away your opponent is. For those of you who are unaware, the three shooting styles are tapping, bursting, and spraying. If you think about it, there's no reason why you should be spraying if you're fighting somebody on the A side of Dust 2 from the pit. It makes more sense to tap or burst, since controlling recoil over such a long distance is a really difficult task. But in close quarters combat, spraying makes a lot more sense, because even if you're not very good at controlling the recoil, there's a larger margin for error due to how close the other player is. Try to look over one of your past demos and see if there's any aim duels that you take where you probably should have used a different shooting style or just other general mistakes. If you're unsure about how you should go about looking through your own demos, or just want to make sure that you're doing the best way possible, you can always book a session with one of our expert coaches at ProGuides.com and they'll walk you through the process. Before we continue, it's time for the question of the day. Today's question is, how much time do you spend practicing your aim? For me, I spend about 10 to 15 minutes before each ranked grind just to make sure that I'm warmed up. But I know some of the coaches and analysts spend upwards of 30 minutes doing warm-ups before they get into it. Let me know what you do in the comments down below. Sometimes, you might not be losing aim duels because you have bad aim itself. It could be because you also have poor movement. I see a lot of Silver and Gold Nova players who put all this time into having really good aim, but still struggle with rifles because they don't know how to stop their movement before shooting. This is where counter-strafing comes in. To be honest, I'm really surprised how many people actually don't know this technique, but that just gives us a good reason to include it in the video. Counter-strafing is when you move in one direction, let go of that key, and press the opposite key at the same time. For example, if I'm moving right with my D key, I can counter-strafe by letting go of D and pressing the A key at the same time. This completely stops your character model and allows your shots to be perfectly accurate. If you want to know more about improving your counter-strafing abilities, you can also check out a video on aim training exercises here. We have an entire exercise based on improving this specific mechanic. If you don't master this one early on, it's going to be way more difficult to get it down later on, so make sure to start practicing now. Another underrated aspect of aim duels is using your utility before the aim duel actually begins. If you can ask your teammate to set you up with a flash, you can run into a full blind opponent, which makes the fight way easier. If you know where the enemy is, you can chuck a Molotov into their position to flush them out and also do some extra damage before they get the chance to fire back. Especially at low levels of matchmaking, simple plays where you throw a flash for a teammate to clear an area is really effective for not only taking map control, but also for getting kills. If you and your friends just spend a little bit of time learning basic flash lineups, you'll be sure to not only get more easy kills, but also make your opponents pretty upset that they don't have a chance to fight back. Before we get into some more ways you can train yourself to win more aim duels, I want to take a quick moment to talk about understanding the way that angles work in the game. The further you are from a wall, the more likely it is that you'll see the enemy first. At the same time, if you're right next to a wall, your opponent is probably going to see you before you see them almost every time. One reason you might be losing aim duels is because you're peeking way too close to the wall, and the enemy can see you and start shooting you before you know where they actually are. With this information in mind, next time you take an aim duel, try and peek out further away from the wall to give yourself the best chance possible to spot your opponent first. And now it's time to get into the most important part of the video. Some of you aren't going to like this answer, but the best thing you can do to improve your success in aim duels is to just have better crosshair placement. I'm sure you've heard this a million times already, but it really is that important, and you wouldn't be hearing it over and over again if it wasn't. The best way to aim in Counter-Strike is to set yourself up to aim as little as possible with good crosshair placement. Let's talk about some different crosshair placement techniques that you can use, as well as some ways that you can practice these techniques. One of the more common aspects of crosshair placement is known as pre-aiming. This is when you aim at a certain position before actually peeking into it in order to have the upper hand if anyone decides to play there. This is something that you want to do with most of the common angles in order to give yourself a better chance of winning a fight. For example, if I think that someone is playing next to the stairs and catwalk on Dust 2, I can aim at that spot before I actually round the corner so that if they are there, I'll have the upper hand in the fight. You should try to pre-aim most of the commonly played positions, but you shouldn't be pre-aiming all the time. If you only pre-aim common angles, you're going to get caught off guard if the opponent plays an off angle. An off angle is an awkward position that nobody really expects and doesn't offer much cover. While these positions are risky for the opponent, they're very useful for catching people off guard as well as punishing players who rely too much on pre-aiming. In order to deal with these sorts of angles, you need to do what's called sliding your crosshair. Now this is a term that you maybe haven't heard before, so let me explain. Sliding your crosshair means moving your crosshair across the entirety of an area so that you don't let anyone playing an off angle slip past your focus. This is something you can do when clearing out any area being contested by the CTs, not just when going into a bomb site. Some players like to be really sneaky with trigger discipline and hide in spots where they can't be seen easily, and just wait until multiple players enter the line of sight so they can shoot them all down at once. By using this technique along with pre-aiming, you should be able to prevent this from happening. If you want to practice this technique, go into an offline server on any map you want to and just practice walking into bomb sites and clearing out all of the angles. And if you want even more practical ways to improve your crosshair placement, you'll probably be interested in YPRAC. YPRAC is a series of practice maps for the competitive map pool that have several different training modes that you can use to improve on each individual map. However, for this video, we're going to be focusing on the peeking practice and pre-fire practice. The peek practice is really useful because it simulates aim duels at common positions on the map against bots, which you can customize to either be moving or just standing still. Having the bots move is better for the long run, but if you're just starting this training, I recommend doing it with bots standing still. This should not only help you improve your crosshair placement when dueling against certain angles, but it should also help you practice your counter-strafing and understanding of angles when fighting an enemy. Even if you're confident in your crosshair placement, I would still use this mode to get comfortable on maps that you haven't learned or feel like you need practice on. Next, let's talk about the pre-fire practice. This mode puts you on an entry route into a bomb site while placing several bots in common positions that you might encounter on your way into it. This will help you understand what angles you should be checking as you go in with your team, as well as improve your ability to fight against certain positions. However, I want to talk about some of the settings involved with using this mode that you should also understand. Personally, I recommend that you set the spawn rate to 40% or 60% and turn the X off so that you can simulate an actual entry route and not get caught in a crossfire from 3 different bots at the same time. This mode is for practicing and improving, so you should do it in a way that doesn't stress you out. Personally, when I practice a map, I'll do an entry route about 5 times, take a 1-minute break, and then do the next one until I've done every route on the map. This should help you practice in comfortable intervals while also allowing your arm and wrist some time to recover from all that intense training. Remember, do your wrist stretches, everybody. One other reason you might be losing a lot of aim duels is not because you have bad aim, but because you put yourself in positions where it's difficult to win in the first place. If you're losing a lot of aim duels, you might be taking a lot of unfavorable engagements. Let's use the A side on Mirage as an example. If you're a CT on an eco round and you decide to buy a 5-7, you want to play in a position that favors the 5-7. The 5-7 is an incredible powerhouse in close quarters combat, but really bad at long range fights. With this in mind, you should try and play toward the sandwich or maybe hide underneath a balcony. By doing this, you put yourself in a more favorable position for the weapon you have. Now let's think about it the other way around. You're a terrorist playing against an eco round, and you know that your opponent will likely have no armor or upgraded pistols. With this in mind, you want to take engagements that are favorable for the rifles. Going up middle allows you to take longer range fights against the pistols, which puts you at an advantage. By applying this logic of engagements to every map, you should have a better understanding of which fights you should and shouldn't be taking. This should result in better decision making overall and aim duels that are just easier to win in the first place. If you want to know whether or not you're taking good engagements, watch one of your demos and look at your opponent's POV when they kill you. Was it easy for them to kill you? Were you out in the open when you died? Or were you too close to a wall? By asking yourself these questions and reflecting on your play, you gain a better understanding of what it means to play in smarter positions and take engagements that are more favorable for you than your opponent. But again, if you're not sure where to start analyzing your own demos, get a coaching session at ProGuides.com with one of our outstanding coaches, and they'll be able to help you understand the flaws in your play.
So I know to a lot of you, the stuff in this video was just covering the basics. But even if you already knew all this, it's important to get that reminder. You can trust me, I have a mustache. But hey, if you want to up your game to an even higher level, then go check out ProGuides.com. You'll get to work with one of our expert coaches to get a personalized experience for improving your own game. And if you want to brush up on the basics, we also have a handful of courses available, like the Op course by Simple. That's it for the video though, so leave a like, sub to the channel, go crush that ranked grind, and I'll see you in the next one.